N2O, Nitrous Oxide, is a tunnel-based rail shooter style game, often known as a tube shooter, that was released for the PlayStation in 1998, seeing you utilise many spacecraft, where you have to fight your way through many environments, where you have to tackle many interesting and unusual enemy types to destroy them, with your goal being to rack up the highest amount of scores, collecting weapon power-ups, and just destroying as many enemies as you possibly can on your journey. You will also gain the ability to gain access to bonus levels that will give you access to various weapon upgrades and features, but only if you kill a required amount of enemies or a particular enemy type within each of the levels. That contributes to the gameplay. It also gives you access to a cooperative multiplayer split screen mode so that you can play the game with your mates. The game received average reviews on its launch, stating that they liked the aesthetic of the game and what it was going for. It is very simplistic in how it presents itself, but it really fits in with the futuristic themes of many of these type of games that were being seen on the PlayStation. As yes, it acts like a rail shooter, but it also has like racing elements tied into it as well, because the more damage you can do and the faster you can go, the quicker you can get through the levels, which also increases your score. And the game also has a very distinctive techno dance type soundtrack that was very reflective of its time, as the PlayStation during its early years was definitely a key component in the dance and club scene, with many games taking a lot of inspiration or even providing much inspiration for many soundtracks being made, and even with music being played in nightclubs and so forth. So it definitely was a period of its time in many regards. And while the game does have some interesting attributes, it is quite simplistic, but at the same time can get quite repetitive after a while, because it is literally the same thing over and over again. Now, it will appeal to a certain dynamic of player that really enjoys this shooter aesthetic and that are fans of this genre. This game will definitely appeal to those players, as it is very easy to get into and it doesn't take much to figure out what to do. And the game in many ways was considered to be very popular during its time, so much so that the game has seen a recent re-release on the Steam platform in recent times to bring the game to a new platform of players, to bring it into a newer generation, so that fans themselves can either revisit or bring new fans into the equation to see what this game is all about. So it's interesting to see that a lot of these games that in many ways, when you look back, you probably wouldn't have thought that they were considered to be overly popular, but they definitely appeal to a variety of players, because if games like this are being re-released on modern systems and platforms, they definitely had something distinctive about them that really appealed to those type of players back at those days. So there was obviously an appeal or an interest in bringing a lot of these games back to modern systems, and this game has gotten that treatment. So when we look at it, it isn't all bad. It won't appeal to everybody, but it definitely does appeal to those dynamics of players, because even as you're playing it, there are some interesting quirks, as you're not limited to your surroundings. Yes, you may be in a tunnel format, but you can literally move around in a 360 environment, moving around the ceilings and walls at your leisure, as and when you see fit. Even though the ships, when you're moving them, they do move in incremental stages, but you can still move. You can fly on the ceilings, you can fly sideways on the walls to shoot at certain enemies. Like, you do have complete freedom of movement to interact with your environment in any way you see fit. So I think that's what adds to the appeal of the game. Plus, with the music, the soundtrack, and the overall fast-paced and frantic nature of the gameplay would really appeal to many of those dynamics and characteristics. So it's easier to see why the game got a re-release. Because even when we look at it now, even if you go over to the Steam page, I'll leave a link to the page in the description so that you can go and check the game out, even if you want to get it yourself. But you'll see, even with the graphics, there's just something about it that just appeals, and it really stands out, almost to a point that it's almost timeless, that it still looks good even by today's standards. That's how integral this game pretty much is, that it still stands the test of time, that it still has all of these visual cues and quirks that is still appealing today, even more so than it was when it was released over 20 years ago, which is quite insane to think about it, that a game can have such a lasting appeal and impact. But it will be interesting to see what other games have this idea. We are seeing a resurgence in many ways of iconic games getting re-releases in recent times. Like, even when we look at the likes of other type of genre games, like with first-person shooters, we look at Exhumed, that was also released on the PlayStation, which I consider to be one of my all-time favourite FPS shooters of all time. And it too has also gotten a re-release in recent times on modern systems, on Steam and other formats, even with the PlayStation 5 and so forth, under the name of Power Slave Exhumed, that brings elements of both the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation versions together all in one package. And as of recording this video, I bought that game game in recent months, and for me it's fantastic getting to play and revisit one of my favourite games ever, but to get to play it in a more modern format is definitely a way to go. So it is interesting to see a lot of these games come back, and I do think that there is a lot more of these type of games that definitely should be revisited. Like, I have to say, right, this game here, I do generally like my shooter games as well. Now, I don't play them as often as I probably should do, and this game does have some interesting qualities, and it is very good, so it's easy to see why it got decent reviews and why it has gotten a recent re-release. Now, for many it might get a bit repetitive in some cases, like it won't be for everybody, let's just get that out of the way, but it definitely has some really fun elements, fast-paced nature, because if anything, this game is super fast-paced, so it is, and you have to be quick on your reflexes and your movement, and you have to be aware of your surroundings at all times to not only just take enemies out, but you have to be aware of environmental hazards and challenges that will appear, because they will appear very, very fast, and if you're not fast enough to move out of the way or to engage with them, to take them out, it will be game over for you. But it will be a real test of skill and dexterity to see how you'll overcome many of the challenges that the game presents. So it is an interesting time to go back and revisit these games, as they do offer something different and dynamic that you don't often get anywhere else. It is a fun game, I have to admit, spending time playing it, and it offers up many different elements. Like, you can play it cooperatively, it does give you access to bonus stages once you've completed certain objectives to allow you to unlock additional features and resources, so there's definitely enough here to keep you playing for some time. It is definitely a good, solid, fun title. Right, it won't appeal to everybody, but it will definitely appeal to people and to gamers and fans of this type of shooter. It's fast paced, it's frantic, it's futuristic themed, it has a great soundtrack. Even one of the best elements of it is the original game back in the day. You could actually take the CD and put it into like a normal CD player or even a Walkman, and you could play the music like a normal music CD. So that also was added to the appeal of the game. There were so many ways that you could enjoy this, so that also added to the overall feel of the game. It's just an interesting title, it's reflective of its time, and it is really cool to see games like this getting a re-release on modern systems, and I genuinely think a lot more of them should get that treatment. But I would love to know your thoughts of this if you have played it yourself, and what do you think of it overall. Do you enjoy these futuristic themed games and shooters that were also released on the PlayStation? And do you like to see many of these games being brought back into the modern state of games? So be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you would like to see more content around other futuristic themed games that were also released on the PlayStation, even some other videos that I have covered on the channel previously, then you can check out the videos here on screen to see more of those games in action. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.